The rain battered the window of our tiny dorm room, a relentless drumbeat that matched the pounding in my chest. I was drowning in calculus. My desk a battlefield of scribbled notes and half-empty coffee cups. When I heard Ida's soft, deliberate knock on my door. It was Ethan, my roommate, standing there with a look that said he was about to unravel everything I thought I knew about us. I'd always been the quiet one, the guy who buried himself in textbooks to avoid the messiness of feelings. At 20, I was a junior at Emerson University, a small liberal arts college in upstate New York, majoring in math because numbers made sense when people didn't. Ethan, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of charisma, a theater major with curly brown hair and a laugh that could light up a room. We'd been randomly assigned as roommates freshman year, and while I kept my head down, he filled our space with music, late-night rants about Shakespeare, and an effortless charm that made everyone love him. Everyone except me, so I told myself. That night, I was alone, wrestling with derivatives. When Ethan knocked, he didn't wait for an answer before slipping inside, his flannel shirt damp from the rain. "Hey, Noah," he said, his voice softer than usual, almost hesitant. "Can we talk?" I pushed my glasses up my nose, my stomach twisting. Ethan never just talked. He performed. He teased. He filled silences with stories. But this was different. His green eyes held something heavy, something that made the air in the room feel too thin. "Sure," I muttered, closing my textbook. "What's up?" He sat on the edge of my bed, too close for comfort, his knee brushing mine. "I've been meaning to tell you something," he said, running a hand through his curls. "Something big." My heart stuttered. I wasn't ready for this, whatever this was. We'd lived together for 2 years, shared late-night pizza runs and argued over whose turn it was to clean the mini-fridge. But we'd never crossed into anything deeper. I liked it that way. Safe. Predictable. "I'm gay," he said, the words landing like a thunderclap. "And I've been in love with you since sophomore year." The room spun. My pencil slipped from my hand, rolling across the desk. I stared at him, my brain scrambling to process what he'd just said. Ethan, the guy who flirted with everyone, who always seemed so untouchable, was in love with me. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I wasn't ready for this, not the confession. Not the way his eyes searched mine for a reaction. Not the sudden realization that my own feelings for him, the ones I'd buried under layers of denial, were clawing their way to the surface. "Say something, Noah," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Please." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But all I could think about was the last time I'd let someone in me high school best friend, Jake, who'd called me a freak when I admitted I might not be straight. The memory stung, a sharp reminder of why I kept my walls up. Ethan wasn't Jake, but the fear was the same. What if I let him in and he broke me? I need time. I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's face fell, but he nodded, standing up slowly. "Okay," he said. "I'll wait." He left the room quietly, the door clicking shut behind him, and I was alone again with my books and a heart that wouldn't stop racing. The rest of the night, I couldn't focus. The equations blurred, my thoughts consumed by Ethan's words. I'd always noticed him, the way he hummed show tunes while cooking ramen, The way his smile made my chest ache, but I'd never let myself dwell on it. Now, it was all I could think about. Was I brave enough to face this? To face him? The next morning, Ethan acted like nothing had happened. He made coffee, cracked jokes, and left for his theater rehearsal without mentioning the night before. But I saw a flicker of hope in his eyes. The way he lingered by the door, waiting for me to say something. I couldn't, not yet. Days passed, and the tension between us grew. We tiptoed around each other, polite but distant, like strangers sharing a too small space. I threw myself into my studies. But every time Ethan laughed or brushed past me in the kitchen, my resolve cracked a little more. I started noticing things I hadn't before: how his hands moved when he talked, how his voice softened when he said my name. It was torture, and I was the one torturing myself. One evening, a week later, I found a note slipped under my door. It was in Ethan's messy handwriting. Meet me at the quad tonight. AP. Please. My heart pounded as I read it. This was a chance to face what I'd been running from. I didn't know if I was ready, but I knew I couldn't keep hiding. At 8 p.m. The quad was quiet, the air crisp with the first hints of fall. Ethan was waiting by the old oak tree, his hands stuffed in his pockets, his breath visible in the cool night. You came, he said, a small smile breaking through his nervousness. I did, I said, my voice unsteady. Ethan, I don't. He cut me off, stepping closer. Don't say anything unless you mean it. I can't. He swallowed hard. I can't lose you, Noah. His words hit me like a wave, washing away the last of my defenses. I thought about Jake, about the fear that had kept me locked away, about the life I'd been too scared to live. And then I looked at Ethan, really looked at him, and realized I didn't want to be that person anymore. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice shaking. But I think I've been in love with you too. Ethan's eyes widened, and for a moment, we just stood there, the world holding its breath. Then he reached for my hand, his fingers warm against mine, and everything changed. The moment Ethan's hand closed around mine, the quad seemed to shrink, the world narrowing to the warmth of his touch. I'd spent years building walls, but in that instant, they crumbled, leaving me raw and exposed. His eyes, bright with hope and something deeper, held me captive, and I knew there was no going back. We walked back to the dorm in silence, our hands still linked, the weight of what we'd admitted settling between us. The campus was alive with the hum of late-night study sessions and distant laughter. But it felt like we were in our own bubble, untouchable. Inside our room, Ethan let go of my hand, and the absence of his warmth hit me harder than I expected. So, he said, leaning against the door, a nervous smile tugging at his lips. What now? I didn't have an answer. I'd never done this, never let myself feel this way, let alone act on it. I don't know, I admitted, sitting on my bed. This is new. Ethan laughed, a soft, shaky sound. Yeah, tell me about it. I've been rehearsing that confession for months, and I still thought I'd screw it up. He crossed the room, sitting beside me, close enough that our shoulders brushed. But you're here. You said it back. That's gotta mean something, right? It does, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But I'm not like you, Ethan. I don't know how to do this. I've never. Hey, he interrupted, his hand finding mine again. You don't have to have it all figured out. We'll figure it out together. His words were a lifeline, but they didn't erase the fear gnawing at me. I thought about my family back in Ohio, Dad, who'd once said he'd disown anyone who chose that lifestyle. My mom, who'd change the subject whenever I mentioned a friend who was out. What would they think if they saw me now, holding hands with Ethan? Would they still love me? Ethan must have seen the storm in my eyes because he squeezed my hand. Talk to me, Noah. What's going on in that big brain of yours? I hesitated, then let it spill. My family, they're not like yours. Your parents are all progressive and cool with everything. Mine, they'd probably kick me out if they knew. Ethan's face softened, but there was a fire in his eyes. Then we don't tell them. Not yet. This is about you and me, not them. He paused, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. But if it comes to that, I've got your back. Always. His promise hung in the air, and for the first time, I let myself believe it. We talked late into the night, sharing stories we'd never dared to before: his first crush on a boy in middle school, my secret admiration for a teammate in high school. It was like peeling back layers, discovering parts of each other we'd kept hidden. By the time we fell asleep, sprawled across my bed, I felt lighter than I had in years. The next few weeks were a blur of stolen glances and tentative touches. We were cautious, keeping our relationship quiet. But every moment with Ethan felt like a rebellion against the fear I'd carried for so long. We'd study together, our knees touching under the table, or watch movies late at night, his head resting on my shoulder. It was new, terrifying, and perfect. But perfection doesn't last. One afternoon, I got a call from my mom. Noah, we're coming to visit next weekend, she said, her voice cheerful. Your dad and I want to see how you're doing. Panic seized me. Ethan was in the room, practicing lines for his latest play, and I must have looked like I'd seen a ghost because he stopped mid-sentence. What's wrong? He asked, crossing to me. My parents, I said, my voice tight. They're coming. They can't know about us. Ethan's face fell, but he nodded. Okay. We'll be careful. Just roommates, right? Right? I said, but the word felt like a betrayal. I hated that I was shoving him back into the shadows. Hated that I wasn't brave enough to stand up to my parents. But the thought of losing them, of losing the only family I had, was too much. The week before their visit was tense. Ethan was still his charming self, but I could see the hurt in his eyes when I pulled away from his touch or changed the subject when he talked about us. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd find a way to balance everything. But deep down, I knew I was lying. The night before my parents arrived, Ethan confronted me. We were in the dorm, the rain starting up again, a cruel echo of that first night. Noah, he said, his voice low but firm. Are you ashamed of me? The question hit like a punch. No, I said quickly, but my hesitation betrayed me. It's not you. It's them. You don't know what they're like. I don't care what they're like, he snapped, his eyes flashing. I care about you. And I'm tired of feeling like your dirty little secret. Ethan, please, I begged, reaching for him, but he stepped back. I love you, he said, his voice breaking. But I can't keep doing this if you're not all in. He grabbed his jacket and left, the door slamming behind him. I stood there, frozen, the weight of his words crushing me. Pushed him away, and now I might have lost him for good. The dorm felt emptier without Ethan, the silence deafening where his laughter used to be. I sat on my bed, staring at the door, willing him to come back. But the minutes ticked by, and he didn't. I'd messed up badly, and the realization that I might have ruined the best thing in my life made my chest ache. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I replayed every moment with Ethan, from his confession to the way his hand felt in mine. I thought about my parents, about the expectations I'd carried since I was a kid to be the perfect son, the one who never rocked the boat. But what was the cost of that perfection? Losing Ethan. Losing myself. By morning, I was a wreck, but I had to pull it together. My parents were arriving in a few hours, and I needed to play the part of the dutiful son. Ethan hadn't come back, and his absence was a knife in my gut. I texted him, "I'm sorry. Can we talk?" But got no reply. I didn't blame him. My parents arrived at noon, all smiles and hugs. My mom fussed over my messy desk, while my dad asked about my grades, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. We went to lunch at a diner off campus, and I nodded along to their stories. But my mind was on Ethan. Where was he? Was he okay? You seem distracted, Noah, my mom said, her brow furrowing. Everything okay? Yeah. I lied, forcing a smile. Just stressed about finals. They bought it, or at least pretended to. We spent the afternoon touring the campus, my dad grumbling about the liberal nonsense in the art department, my mom snapping photos of the library. Every step felt like a performance, and I hated how easy it was to slip back into the version of myself they wanted. That evening, back at the dorm, I found Ethan's script for his play on the coffee table. He'd been practicing for weeks, pouring his heart into it, and I hadn't even bothered to ask about it. Guilt twisted in my stomach. I grabbed my jacket and headed to the theater, hoping he'd be there. The auditorium was dimly lit, the stage empty except for Ethan, running lines with another actor. He looked tired, his usual spark dimmed. But when he saw me, his expression hardened. I waited until the rehearsal ended, then approached him as the others left. "Ethan," I started, but he cut me off. "What do you want, Noah?" His voice was cold, and it hurt more than I expected. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice cracking. "I was wrong. I was scared. But that's not an excuse." He crossed his arms, his eyes searching mine. "Do you even know what you want? Because I can't keep guessing." "I want you," I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "I want us. I don't know how to do this with my parents. But I'm done hiding." For a moment, he didn't move, and I thought I'd lost him for good. Then he stepped closer, his hand brushing my arm. "You mean that?" "I do," I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. "I love you, Ethan, and I'm not ashamed of it." He pulled me into a hug, his arms tight around me, and I felt the tension drain from my body. We stood there, in the empty auditorium, holding on to each other like we were afraid to let go. It wasn't a fix for everything. My parents were still in town, and I had no idea how to face them, but for the first time, I felt like I could. We went back to the dorm together, talking quietly about what came next. Ethan suggested keeping things low-key while my parents were around, but not hiding. "We don't have to tell them everything," he said, his hand in mine. "But we don't have to pretend we're just roommates either." The next day, my parents wanted to meet Ethan. "Your roommate sounds like quite a character," my dad said, chuckling. I froze, but Ethan handled it with his usual charm, shaking their hands and cracking jokes about our messy dorm. I watched him, my heart swelling with pride and something deeper. He was giving me space to figure this out, but he wasn't backing down. Dinner was tense. My dad made a comment about those people in the theater department, and I saw Ethan's jaw tighten. I wanted to say something, to stand up for him, but the words caught in my throat. Ethan squeezed my knee under the table, a silent reminder that we were in this together. After my parents left, I felt a mix of relief and guilt. I hadn't told them the truth, but I hadn't lied either. It was a start. Ethan and I spent the night talking, planning how to navigate this new reality. He told me about his own coming out, how his parents had embraced him, and I envied his courage. But he didn't push me. He just listened, his hand warm in mine, and I knew I'd made the right choice. The weeks after my parents' visit were a delicate dance. Ethan and I were together, really together, but we kept it quiet on campus. Emerson was progressive, but small-town upstate New York wasn't always kind to guys like us. We found safety in the little moments, cooking dinner together, stealing kisses in the dorm when no one was around, studying side by side with our feet tangled under the table. But the secrecy weighed on me. Ethan deserved better than hidden glances and coded words. I saw it in his eyes sometimes. The flicker of frustration when I pulled away in public or changed the subject when friends asked about us. I wanted to be braver, but every time I thought about coming out, my dad's voice echoed in my head, warning me about that lifestyle. One night, Ethan dragged me to a campus pride event. "Just come," he said, his smile coaxing. "You don't have to do anything. Just be there." The quad was lit up with rainbow flags, music blaring, students laughing and dancing. I felt out of place, my hands shoved deep in my pockets. But Ethan was in his element, hugging friends and introducing me as Noah, my roommate. The word stung, but I didn't correct him. A girl from Ethan's theater group, Mia, pulled me aside. "You're good for him, you know," she said, her eyes knowing. "He's happier since you two got close." I mumbled a thanks, my face burning. Did she know? Had Ethan told her? The thought made my stomach churn. But it also sparked something else, pride. I was good for him, and he was good for me. That night, back in the dorm, I told Ethan about Mia's comment. He grinned, sprawling across my bed. "She's got a sixth sense for this stuff. Don't worry. She's cool." He paused, his grin fading. But it made me realize, I want to tell people. Noah. Not everyone, but the people who matter. I want them to know you're mine. My heart raced. "I want that too," I said, surprising myself. But I'm scared. What if it gets back to my parents? Then we deal with it, he said, sitting up. Together. You don't have to do this alone. His words gave me courage. But courage is fleeting. The next day, I overheard a group of guys in my calculus class whispering about the gay couple in the dorms. My blood ran cold. They didn't name us. But the way they sneered, the way they laughed at it felt like a warning. Kept my head down. But the fear lingered. Ethan noticed my mood when I got back to the dorm. What's wrong? He asked, setting down his script. I told him about the guys, my voice shaking. What if they know? What if they come after us? Ethan's face hardened. If they come after us, they'll regret it. But Noah, we can't live like this, always looking over our shoulders. We deserve to be happy. He was right. But happiness felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. That night, I had a nightmare, me dad standing in our dorm, yelling. Ethan walking away. I woke up sweating. Ethan's arm draped over me. He stirred, mumbling, "You okay?" Yeah. I lied. But I clung to him, needing his warmth to ground me. The next morning, Ethan had an idea. Let's go off campus this weekend, he said. Just us. No hiding. No worrying. A real date. I hesitated, but his excitement was infectious. We drove to a small town an hour away, where no one knew us. We held hands in a coffee shop, laughed over burgers at a diner, and kissed under a streetlight without looking around to see who might be watching. For the first time, I felt free. But freedom comes with a cost. When we got back to campus, there was a note taped to our dorm door. Fags don't belong here. My stomach dropped. Ethan ripped it down, his hands shaking with anger. This is bullshit, he said, crumpling the paper. We're not letting them win. I wanted to agree, but the note felt like a noose tightening around me. Ethan called campus security, who promised to investigate, but their assurances felt hollow. That night, we slept in the same bed, holding each other tightly, but the fear was back, stronger than ever. The next day, I saw one of the guys from my calculus class staring at me in the library. His smirk said everything. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers, but I couldn't move. When I told Ethan, he was furious. We're not hiding anymore, he said. We're going to the dean. I followed him, my heart pounding. But I knew he was right. We couldn't let fear dictate our lives. The dean listened, her face grim, and promised to take action. But as we left her office, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The dean's promise felt like a bandage on a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. Ethan and I walked back to the dorm, our hands brushing but not quite touching. The weight of that note still heavy between us. I wanted to believe things would get better. But the campus felt different now. Like every glance held a hidden threat. Ethan tried to keep things light, cracking jokes about the dean's tacky sweater. But I could see the strain in his eyes. He was scared too, even if he wouldn't admit it. That night, we sat on the couch, a movie playing in the background. But neither of us was watching. We're stronger than this, Ethan said, his voice firm. They can't take that away from us. I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. Strength was easy to talk about, harder to live. The next day, I caught another whisper in the cafeteria, those two in dorm 3B, and my appetite vanished. Ethan squeezed my hand under the table. But it wasn't enough to quiet the storm in my head. Things escalated fast. A few days later, I found my locker in the math building defaced with a slur, scrawled in black marker. I scrubbed it off before anyone else saw, my hands shaking, but the word burned into my mind. I didn't tell Ethan was already stressed, juggling rehearsals and classes, but keeping it from him felt like another betrayal. That weekend, Ethan's play opened. He'd been pouring his heart into it. A modern take on Romeo and Juliet with a queer twist. I sat in the audience, my parents' visit and the campus hostility fading for a moment as I watched him on stage. He was electric, his performance raw and powerful. And when he delivered his final monologue, a plea for love in a world that tried to tear it apart, I felt tears sting my eyes. This was Ethan. My Ethan. Bearing his soul for everyone to see. After the show, I found him backstage, surrounded by friends. He pulled me into a hug, not caring who was watching, and whispered, "You're my Romeo, you know." I laughed, my heart swelling. But the moment was cut short when I saw the guy from my calculus class in the crowd. His eyes locked on us. The same smirk, the same threat. I told Ethan about the locker later that night, and his face darkened. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he demanded, pacing the dorm. "We're supposed to be a team." "I didn't want to stress you out," I said, but it sounded weak even to me. "Noah, this isn't just about you. It's about us." He stopped pacing, his eyes pleading. "We can't fight this if you keep shutting me out." He was right, and it hurt. I promised to be more open, but the fear was still there, a shadow I couldn't shake. The next day, we went to the dean again, this time with photos of the defaced locker I'd taken before cleaning it. She was sympathetic but vague, promising increased security measures. It didn't feel like enough. The harassment didn't stop. Anonymous messages started appearing in my campus email. Cruel words that cut deeper each time. Ethan got them too, but he brushed them off, his defiance stronger than mine. "They're cowards," he said, deleting another message. "They don't get to win." But they were winning. I started skipping classes, avoiding the cafeteria, retreating to the dorm whenever I could. Ethan tried to pull me out of it, dragging me to coffee shops or late-night walks. But I was slipping. The weight of it, Almy parents, the campus, my own fear was crushing me. One night, Ethan came home late from rehearsal, his face pale. "Someone slashed my tires," he said, his voice shaking. I froze, guilt flooding me. This was my fault. If I'd been braver, if I hadn't hesitated, maybe we wouldn't be targets. "I'm done hiding," Ethan said, his voice fierce. "We're going to the student council. We're organizing a rally. No more letting these assholes control us." I wanted to argue, to tell him it was too risky, but the fire in his eyes stopped me. He was fighting for us, and I couldn't let him do it alone. "Okay," I said, my voice steady. "Let's do it." The rally was planned for the following week. A public stand against hate on campus. Ethan threw himself into organizing it, rallying his theater friends and the Pride group. I helped where I could, designing flyers and spreading the word. But every step felt like walking on a tightrope. What if it backfired? What if it made things worse? The night before the rally, we lay in bed, Ethan's head on my chest. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. "I know this is hard." "I'm proud of you too," I said, kissing his forehead. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe we could do this. Maybe we could be enough. The morning of the rally dawned cold and gray, the sky heavy with the promise of rain. The quad was already buzzing when Ethan and I arrived. Students setting up tables with rainbow flags and signs that read "Love is love" and "Hate has no home here." Ethan was in his element, directing volunteers with a confidence I envied. I hung back, clutching a stack of flyers, my stomach in knots. "You okay?" Mia asked, peering beside me. Her warm smile eased some of my tension. "Yeah," I lied, scanning the crowd. I kept expecting to see the guy from my calculus class, his smirk haunting me. Just nervous. "You're doing great," she said, squeezing my arm. "Ethan's lucky to have you." Her words bolstered me, and I threw myself into helping, passing out flyers and chatting with students who stopped by. Most were supportive, sharing stories of their own struggles or thanking us for standing up. But not everyone was kind. A group of guys passed by, muttering slurs under their breath. Ethan caught my eye, his jaw tight, but we kept going. We had to. The rally started at noon, with Ethan taking the stage. He spoke with a passion that silenced the crowd, his voice carrying over the quad. "This campus is our home," he said, "and no one gets to make us feel unsafe here. Not for who we are. Not for who we love." The crowd cheered, and I felt a surge of pride, my heart swelling as I watched him. I spoke too, my voice shaky at first but growing stronger. I talked about the note on our door, the defaced locker, the slashed tires. I talked about fear, about hiding, about finding the courage to stand here now. When I mentioned Ethan, my voice cracked, and I saw him smile from the side of the stage. The crowd applauded, and for the first time, I felt like I belonged. But the high didn't last. That night, someone threw a brick through our dorm window. The glass shattered, scattering shards across the floor, and a note tied to the brick read, "Leave or else." Ethan called security while I stood frozen, staring at the broken window. This wasn't just a prank, Anna Maria, it was a threat. Security took the note and promised a full investigation. But their words felt empty. Ethan and I cleaned up the glass in silence, the weight of it all settling back over us. "We can't let this stop us," Ethan said, his voice fierce but tired. "If we back down now, they win." "I know," I said, but my resolve was crumbling. I was tired of being scared, tired of fighting, tired of feeling like we were always one step away from disaster. The next day, the dean called us in. She'd identified the culprits, 3 students, including the guy from my calculus class. They were facing suspension, but it didn't feel like enough. "We're increasing patrols," she said, "and we'll hold a town hall to address this." It was something, but it didn't erase the fear. Ethan and I decided to take a break from campus. We drove to his parents' house, a cozy place in the suburbs where his mom hugged us both and his dad made bad jokes over dinner. They knew about us, and their acceptance was a balm I hadn't realized I needed. For the first time, I saw what a family could be: supportive, loving, real. But even there, the shadow followed us. I got a call from my mom, her voice tight. "Noah, someone sent us a photo," she said. "You and that roommate of yours, holding hands. What's going on?" My heart stopped. I'd been so careful. But someone had seen us, maybe at the rally. Maybe on our date. I stammered, trying to explain. But she cut me off. "We're coming to campus tomorrow. We need to talk." Ethan held me as I cried that night, the weight of my parents' disapproval crashing down. "Whatever happens," he said, his voice steady, "I'm here. We'll face it together." I nodded, but the fear was back, stronger than ever. My parents were coming, and I had no idea how to tell them the truth. I fought so hard to be brave. But now, faced with losing them, I wasn't sure I could. The next morning, we drove back to campus, the silence heavy between us. Ethan reached for my hand, and I let him hold it, clinging to the one thing that felt certain. Whatever happened next, I had him. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. The drive back to campus felt like a march to the gallows. My parents were waiting in the dorm's common room when we arrived, their faces a mix of confusion and disapproval. My mom's eyes were red, like she'd been crying, and my dad's jaw was set, his arms crossed tightly. Ethan squeezed my hand before letting go, a silent promise to stay close. "Noah," my mom said, standing as we entered. "We need to talk. Alone." I glanced at Ethan, who nodded slightly. "I'll be outside," he said, his voice calm but firm. He left, and the door clicked shut, sealing me in with my parents and a truth I wasn't ready to face. "What's this about you and Ethan?" my dad asked, his voice low. "Dangerous. We got a photo, some anonymous email. You two holding hands. Looking close." I swallowed, my throat dry. "It's true," I said, the words barely audible. "Ethan and we're together." The silence was suffocating. My mom's hand flew to her mouth, and my dad's face reddened. "This isn't you, Noah," he said. "You're not like that." "I am," I said, my voice shaking but growing stronger. "I've always been like this. I just didn't know how to tell you." My mom started crying, and my dad stood, pacing the small room. "This is that liberal college nonsense," he snapped. "They've brainwashed you. That boy's brainwashed you." "No," I said, standing now, my hands trembling. "Ethan didn't do anything. He showed me it's okay to be myself. I love him, Dad, and I'm not ashamed of it." The words hung in the air, a line I couldn't uncross. My dad stopped pacing, his eyes boring into mine. "If you choose this," he said, "you're choosing to lose us." My heart shattered, but I didn't back down. "I'm not choosing anything," I said. "I'm just being honest. If you can't accept that, that's on you." My mom reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "Noah, please," she whispered. "We just need time." "Take all the time you want," I said, tears burning my eyes. "But I'm done hiding." I left the room, my legs shaking, and found Ethan waiting outside. He didn't ask what happened, Ed just pulled me into a hug. And I let myself cry. The weight of years of fear and shame spilling out. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. And those words were enough to keep me standing. My parents left that afternoon. No goodbye. Just a note saying they'd call when they were ready. I didn't know if they ever would be. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of that. I had Ethan. And I had myself, the real me. Not the version I'd been pretending to be. The campus felt different after that. The dean's investigation led to the suspension of the 3 students. And the town hall sparked real change, more support for queer students. Better security. A sense that we weren't alone. Ethan and I didn't hide anymore. We held hands in the quad. Kissed in the cafeteria. Lived our truth without apology. But the scars remained. I'd lost my parents. At least for now. And that pain didn't vanish overnight. Ethan carried his own wounds, the slashed tires. The hateful notes, but we leaned on each other. Finding strength in the life we were building together. One night, as spring bloomed across campus, Ethan took me to the oak tree in the quad. The same place where we'd first admitted our feelings. He pulled out a small box, his hands shaking. "I know it's not legal or anything," he said, opening it to reveal 2 simple silver rings. "But I want you to know I'm all in. Forever." I stared at the rings, my heart so full it hurt. "Forever," I echoed, slipping one onto his finger as he did the same for me. We kissed under the oak tree, the stars bright above us. And I knew this was home, not the campus. Not the dorm. But him. The months that followed were a new beginning. Ethan and I settled into a rhythm. Our lives intertwined in ways I'd never imagined. We studied together. Laughed together. Faced the world together. The campus wasn't perfect, there were still whispers. Still glances, but we'd built something stronger than hate. We'd built love. I started therapy, working through the pain of my parents' rejection. It wasn't easy, but Ethan was there, holding my hand through every session, reminding me I wasn't alone. He had his own battles, additions, the pressure of his senior year, but he never let me feel like I was fighting alone. One day, I got a letter from my mom. It was short, tentative, but it was a start. "We're trying to understand," she wrote. "We love you, Noah." I cried reading it, not because it fixed everything, but because it was a crack in the wall between us. Ethan held me as I read it again and again, his quiet strength anchoring me. We graduated that spring. Ethan with a theater degree and a lead role in a local production. Me with a math degree and a job offer at a tech startup. We moved into a tiny apartment off campus. Our rings a constant reminder of the promises we'd made. It wasn't perfect, there were bills to pay. Dishes to argue over. Moments of doubt, but it was ours. One night, as we lay in bed, Ethan traced the ring on my finger. "You know," he said, his voice soft. "That night I told you I loved you. I thought I'd lose you. But you changed everything." I smiled, kissing him gently. "You changed me too." Looking back, I realized that night wasn't just about Ethan's confession. It was about me choosing to be brave. To love without fear. To build a life worth living. We'd faced hate, loss, and uncertainty, but we'd come out stronger. And as I fell asleep in Ethan's arms, I knew that no matter what came next, we'd face it together. The world wasn't always kind, but it was ours to change. and we would together, forever,